We are just days away from the 2020 WWE Draft from SmackDown and Raw. Are going to be live this upcoming Friday and Monday on SmackDown and Raw. But you know what? We're going to talk to some of our top analysts here on the Wrestling Chatter. I want to talk to Steve Kaufmann. I want to talk to Josh Tariff. We want to talk about who are going to be your top 5 picks for SmackDown and Raw. Of course, I want everybody watching here to let us know who are your top 5 picks. But first, we're going to start off with Steve. Who are your top 5 draft picks for SmackDown?
Okay, so if you're telling me this week that I get to take control of SmackDown Live on Fox, here's what I want. I want a thriving tag team division. I want the roster of tomorrow, not today. And I want work rate, in-ring action. That's what I want. And my number 5 pick, starting, is all the way from merry old England. He is Pete Dunn. I will be making literal waves by bringing a British superstar all the way over to America in the time of COVID. I'm not positive I can even get it done, but I'm going to draft him, and I'm going to make it happen. Number 4, also technically a British wrestler, Australian wrestler. You want very strong, very young, very talented folks, and it is Rhea Ripley. This will allow me to shake up the women's division, and once Bayley and Sasha face each other once, you can then have one of them work with Rhea Ripley to cool down that feud, to pick it back up again, and it'll completely shake it up. Imagine Alexa Bliss, imagine Nikki Cross, imagine Sasha Banks, imagine Bayley all working with Rhea Ripley. Now, pick number 3 is a twofer, because I want a thriving tag team division. And on Raw, you have Heavy Machinery, and that's who I want. And it's a twofer, and some would call it a threefer, because Otis is also Mr. Money in the Bank. He could use that on behalf of Heavy Machinery to become SmackDown Live Tag Team Champions, or he could use that for himself to become champion here on SmackDown.
We got to cut you off because I think
Heavy Machinery is on SmackDown.
Heavy Machinery is on SmackDown. Therefore, disqualification, but we're not keeping score.
Okay, then I'm so excited about a Heavy Machinery. I didn't even know I had them.
Yeah, you already have them on SmackDown. They're already there.
It's already there.
They're already way ahead of you about a year ago. So there you go.
I misused pick number 3. I'm so confident in my picks. I'll let it slide. Pick number 2 is Kevin Owens. Now you might be wondering, Steve, you said you want the roster of tomorrow. Who is the roster of tomorrow going to work with? They're going to work with Kevin Owens. He's an indie veteran. He's an indie darling. He's an internet wrestling darling. He's a wrestler's wrestler. And name me one person who's currently on the SmackDown Live roster that couldn't have a 4-star match with Kevin Owens. You can't. And my number 1 pick, and y'all are going to give me a lot of heat for this, but it is the Undisputed Era. Adam Cole, Strong, and O'Reilly. This is a 3-for-1 pick. They're former tag team champions, former NXT champions. They can all work as a single, and they can all work as a tag. Good luck.
No love for Bobby Fish?
Yeah, you left Bobby Fish out of there?
No, Fish is also... Sorry.
Yeah, he's also an undisputed because you said 3.
Sorry, that's a 4 for... I didn't think you guys would let
Steve,
me...
you're just so excited about SmackDown right now.
I'm so excited to rebuild SmackDown with younger names. I forgot some of the names. No, you're right. Bobby Fish as well. I wasn't positive you guys would let me have 4. And as a caveat, if Adam Cole has to stay, I'll take the remaining 3.
Well, we let you have
to stay.
We let you have a SmackDown tag team to be on SmackDown. So you might, if you can do that, then you can have 4 for 1.
I think it's fair because Heavy Machinery was already on SmackDown. So technically, if you say his 3rd pick was half of Undisputed Era, and then the number 1 pick was the other half of Undisputed Era, then sure, we'll allow it because that's 4 different guys.
My picks work out.
Yes, it all works out. Steve, with your picks, because I love the thought of Undisputed Era, but they're doing something right now in NXT where they've already started building certain dissension with things where as much as I think that they're certainly more than ready to leave NXT, I don't think they're going to go yet. If you were to say, now this is not on my list, but if you were bringing up NXT people, to me, the ones that make the most sense would be Gargano and Candice LeRae at this point, because they really now TakeOver ended. Neither of them won. They're not really in any type of programs. They've done everything that they really could there. That could be, you talk about putting on 4-star matches with anybody. Johnny Gargano, look no further than that. Johnny Gargano, Kevin Owens match would just be amazing. So otherwise, I truly enjoy your list. I think everyone would be a fantastic fit on SmackDown. What I find most interesting is my list. None of the people on my list were on yours.
Perfect.
So this is a good thing because we did not plan this ahead of time. So I am like with Steve Kaufmann on the fact that SmackDown is the wrestling show. So we want the younger talent that is going to have the more in-ring action, while Raw is more so of the storytelling. So my number 5 pick to move to SmackDown would be Alistair Black. Now, Alistair Black, I know these last few months with the way they've done his storyline with Seth Rollins and now with Kevin Owens, they've certainly kind of lost the spark with him. To me, he is still as close to a modern-day version of The Undertaker as anyone that could possibly be on the roster. And that includes the weird transitions with Bray Wyatt and The Fiend. Because to me, The Fiend is almost more so like a Kane Mankind than Undertaker. But this guy can wrestle with anybody. He's got such a unique look to him, which is so different because he's tall, but lanky, but can fly, but has all the martial arts. He could really do some damage on SmackDown. Another person that could do some damage on SmackDown that would like to follow Aleister Black around would be my number 4 pick, which is Zelina Vega. Zelina has clearly shown that she is now ready for the singles push since she's no longer with Andrade. Angel Garza's on the shelf. She had a couple matches with Asuka, but she is one of the top female talkers on all brands. And you put her as a solo act on SmackDown, she is going to be one of the top females on that show, no doubt about it. Another female that could get pushed to the top on SmackDown is my number 3 pick, which is Peyton Royce. We're separating the Iconics. She's in store for a big singles push. You can actually make Peyton, because, again, she also likes to be comedic, and she can talk as well. Why can't she be a babyface? Why can't she be one of the top babyfaces on the SmackDown roster? They need some more females on that show who are babyfaces that can talk, because there really aren't many. So I think Peyton Royce could be a good fit there. My number 2 pick, we're talking about the wrestlers. We're talking about wrestling, high-flying, excitement. Who is more exciting in the WWE than Ricochet? And Ricochet is being just floundering around on Raw right now. But right now, SmackDown, your top high flyers really are Lucha House Party. And that is great for the Hispanic audience. But for the American audience, they also want to have someone who, as far as their promos and their story and their upbringing. So for the youth of the American high-flying wrestling fans, you put someone like Ricochet in there as well. You cover that demographic. He's perfect to have like the shot at the Universal title, but obviously a great fit for, come on, Ricochet and Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental Championship. You know that's money. And then my number 1 pick, the one who brings everything full circle with everything that's going on in the Roman Reigns storyline, is Keith Lee. Why Keith Lee? Last year at Survivor Series was when it came down to Keith Lee and Roman Reigns. And when Roman Reigns did the fist bump saying we should do this again, well, now Roman Reigns is the Universal Champion. What's right around the corner? Oh, that would be Survivor Series. You bring Keith Lee onto the show. Once Roman Reigns kills his cousin in Hell in a Cell, then next up will be Keith Lee a year later at Survivor Series, immediate number 1 contender for Roman Reigns.
I'll start with number 1. Does Keith Lee win?
We'll have to wait and see.
Because if Keith Lee doesn't win, that doesn't help him at all. He's being built up correctly over on Raw currently after that.
You think
1 week?
No.
You think he's being built up correctly on Raw?
No.
Time limit draw with Braun Strowman beats Randy Orton clean.
He's had one win since he's come over to Raw.
He beat Randy Orton in the squash. Then it's been DQ, 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 no contest, double count out.
him losing to
And he
Roman
beat
Reigns,
Andrade.
losing to Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship on pay-per-view will do more than what he's done on Raw so far.
1,000%.
If I had him, he wouldn't be in the main event picture immediately.
Well, he's on my SmackDown.
I know. I find it interesting. I find it interesting that you think between Peyton Royce and Billie Kay, Peyton Royce is the one that should go to SmackDown. Whereas I think she's the showier one. I think if anything, she should stay on Raw and Billie Kay should go to SmackDown.
I think Peyton Royce is the better wrestler, though.
Yeah, Peyton Royce is the better of the two wrestlers, and Billie Kay has the more. They're both very entertaining, but Billie Kay has the more comedic timing. So I think she would end up staying with Raw for that reason.
That's fair. I agree. We should break them up. I wish the draft broke them up because that would make way more sense than how they actually broke up on TV.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And they still ended up together like a couple weeks later with Billy in Payne's corner, which was like, I mean, I guess it makes sense because since they can't be a tag team anymore, that doesn't mean they can't still be friends. But I do have questions for Steve because you mentioned Pete Dunne, you mentioned Undisputed Era. Are any of these guys in the Universal Championship picture plans? Because I look at everybody that you mentioned, not anybody can come close to dethroning Roman, who I think is the number one guy in WWE today. Like I don't see Pete Dunne facing off against Roman Reigns, but do you see Pete Dunne as a Intercontinental Championship guy, or do you see Undisputed Era kind of floundering in that mid-card division as well?
No, I see the Undisputed Era dominating any way they can. So they're going to run roughshod through that tag division, while Adam Cole is going to run roughshod all the way up to Roman Reigns. Adam Cole is one of the few baby faces around his age and status that could get a banana peel DQ kind of a loss to Roman Reigns and keep his stamina, if you will. Stamina is not the word. I was about to say heat, but that's not the word either. But I do think Pete Dunne will A, make you headlines, and B, you can start him at the bottom of the card because not a lot of Americans know who he is. And you can start him at the bottom of the card. He can be your workhorse. He can be your Davey Boy Smith. He can work every week. That when it comes time for him to face Roman Reigns, it's a groundswell, not a shoehorn.
So you think he can make headlines, although the American audience doesn't know who he is?
Yes. He'll make international headlines that the American audience who doesn't know who he is will read.
Well, Josh, now it's your turn to pick.
Yes, George.
You're 5-1 for Monday Night Raw. Now, if I were to give points here, I would give the point to Josh, mostly because of the Keith Lee thing. I do think there is money for Keith Lee Roman, and I do disagree with Steve about if Keith Lee loses to Roman, it's not the end of the world. Losses,
no.
We hear it all the time with certain, I guess you could say, pundits or personalities in wrestling, where wins and losses don't matter. No, wins and losses do matter. Who cares, right? It's all pro wrestling. There's a guy that jobbed out the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 12. I wonder how that guy's doing right now because that Ultimate Warrior pretty much killed his finisher. And
I also do want to point out when we're talking about drafts are about intentionality. My intentionality is to build a brand so strong that Keith Lee and Ricochet will step over each other to come over.
And I do agree with your women because the lack of women on SmackDown is embarrassing. There was a graphic that I saw a couple of days ago where you had all the Raw women, all the NXT women, and all the SmackDown women. It was embarrassing. There's like 6 women on SmackDown.
One thing I would say, I've seen some of these graphics, and I don't think WWE even realized it because when I was trying to look at this top 5 for both of these, I went on WWE.com just to make sure I'm looking at the full rosters. As of the time that we're doing this recording, SmackDown listed Mustafa Ali, Mickie James, Byron Saxton, and Lars Sullivan on their SmackDown roster on WWE.com.
WWE.com also lists. They also list NXT. Also, still lists Keith Lee, who is very much on Raw.
Although I do think it'd be hilarious before you start off with your Raw picks, Josh. I would think it's hilarious if Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke get drafted to SmackDown. But going on to your list, Josh.
Yes. So onto my list as far as superstars that will go over to Monday Night Raw. Now, my difference with the list for the most part are your bigger guys, again, for the more theatrics of the intimidation factor to also enhance other stories. SmackDown is more wrestling based. Raw could be the more story around based. So that's why my number 5 pick has already been hanging on Raw these last few weeks for whatever reason, and that would be the monster among men, Braun Strowman. Braun has now seemingly just decided to completely forget about trying to get the Universal title back, and he's just been looking to pick a fight, and he's already now planting the seeds of being the guy that Adam Pearce, WWE official, just drives him crazy. So that type of story, I think, could go there, where Braun just continues to wreak havoc, to beat up whoever, wherever he wants, and no one can do anything about it. Adam Pearce is trying to do what he can, fines, suspensions, whatever. It doesn't work, and eventually someone now comes out to start the big-time feud with Braun. Number 4 would be the phenomenal AJ Styles. Now, this one I know kind of contradicts how I was introducing this when I was talking about wrestling, but you do need some good wrestlers on Raw to still get all these big guys over. And who can get guys over more, really, than AJ Styles? AJ will work with the Braun Strowman. He'll work with the Drew McIntyre. He'll work with – I actually would really love to see an AJ Styles-Murphy match, personally. I think that would be very, very entertaining. And whether you want him on as a face or a heel in the mid-card, in the main event, you know he can do it whichever way you feel is the best fit at that time. Number 3, for storyline purposes, will be Sheamus. Why Sheamus? Because we're all just kind of sick of seeing him in that weird hat and everything now. But everything on WWE Network has been all these stories now with Drew McIntyre and what he's gone through and what he's overcome. And who's the main best friend that's always interviewed in those things? That would be his real-life best friend, Sheamus. So what better way as far as a deep personal feud once this whole Drew McIntyre-Randy Orton saga ends, whether it's for the title or not, that you have Sheamus somehow be the one next in line to feud with Drew McIntyre because he's now jealous because he didn't get fired from WWE. Why is Drew McIntyre getting all these accolades when Sheamus has just been there working his ass off for over a decade? My number 2 on this list, you guys are going to be completely thrown for a loop because everyone's forgotten about this guy since he has been gone on injury. But my number 2 is Elias. Elias should be due to come back fairly soon based on various reports that you might see. So it might be in the next few weeks. It might be in the next month or 2. But based on the time frame of the type of injury he had and the recovery, he's about due. And this would be a great opportunity to reintroduce Elias because we knew Elias is a great wrestler. We know he's a big guy, and we know he is great as a heel. And when he sings and everything along that nature, this will bring far more entertainment than the 24/7 title. I can assure of that. And it just kind of, he was, again, floundering on SmackDown because we turned him babyface. He had this weird feud with Baron Corbin that no one got into. And now you bring him back to Raw, you reintroduce him, bring up Elias, and I think that would be a fun spot. And my number 1 pick to go from SmackDown to Raw is Sasha Banks. Yep, I know. Steve looks confused. Hear me out. Sasha is feuding with Bayley. All of a sudden, Sasha is drafted to Raw. Sasha's pissed. Bayley is overjoyed because her biggest rivalry is now gone. She can relax, enjoy a longer reign as SmackDown champion. Sasha still wants to get at Bayley, but is angry, but has to do her job, be on Raw. She'll have some feuds, have matches, help elevate the women's division some more, maybe get a title shot, and Bayley on a pay-per-view costs her the match. But then Royal Rumble comes along, Sasha wins. She can go for whatever title she wants. So she's going to go back to SmackDown, and then we can have Bayley and Sasha main event WrestleMania for the Women's Championship. Because they could, if they do it correctly, you can build that feud up long enough where there was nothing that would main event better than that.
Okay. You actually sold me on the Sasha Banks stuff.
You're welcome.
I was initially thinking like, well, what about the depth on SmackDown? And I'm like, well, it's not if you're drafting for Raw, it's not your job to care about the depth for SmackDown. You should leave them with that depth.
Yeah.
Including Sasha Banks. I think including Sasha Banks, there are 6 women on the SmackDown roster. Bray Wyatt, or you didn't draft Bray Wyatt. Sorry, Braun Strowman. Braun being drafted 5th surprises me. Not drafting him, but drafting him 5th. You don't.
I'm looking at as far as I put these in my order of which ones I feel can most enhance certain stories to help elevate Raw. Because let's all be honest, between Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, Raw's the one that needs the most help elevating superstars and building up more enticing stories right now. So I use this list based on where I would rank the importance of their stories and their placement. Braun obviously can be a first-round pick because he's freaking Braun Strowman. But for story purposes, that's why I put him at number 5.
Gotcha.
Would you have AJ Styles as a babyface or a heel?
I think at first I might have him as a babyface at the beginning, at least.
Also, just it's on everyone's mind. Why is AJ Styles running scared from Paul Heyman? Paul Heyman's in charge of Raw. He goes to SmackDown. Paul Heyman goes to SmackDown. He runs back to Raw. What?
I didn't want to list that on my reasons, but you kind of called it out.
It's running scared.
So that's kind of part of that reason as well that AJ goes to Raw.
It's almost as if AJ Styles don't want none.
And that's our show. Thanks for
boy. Oh man.
All right, Steve. I clearly won SmackDown. Now let's see if you can actually try to even the score, because I mean that I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but it was a pretty damn good Raw draft, I must say.
All right. So drafts are about intentionality.
Yep.
So my intentionality for Raw is the showier brand. If anything, Raw is the brand above any wrestler that's on the brand. Kind of like ESPN, kind of like the NFL, kind of like the UFC. So that it's less about who you have and what they're doing in the ring and more about can they maintain the viewership you've already earned. So my number 5 pick from NXT is Johnny Gargano, who will bring his wife with him, Candice LeRae.
I knew it.
It is 2 picks in 1. I'm known for these. And between him and Ciampa, who do you think is the more showier one? The one that more or less fits into a Monday Night Raw? And I think we can all agree it's Johnny Gargano.
Ciampa. No,
really?
Ciampa fits more for Raw because he reminds me too much of Randy Orton, who fits more for Raw than SmackDown. And Gargano is, I feel, complete SmackDown. But that's mine. I mean, your draft, not mine.
I was gonna say I love Johnny Gargano, but I guess they need somebody to replace R-Truth as a 24/7 champion. But who's your number 4 pick?
Hold up. I will not let y'all do Johnny Gargano like that. I
didn't insult him. I said he's better for SmackDown.
I think he has more of an ability to do the scripted promo and the way Raw happens, the scripted, entertaining, multiple segments, no matches promos. I think Johnny Gargano is in a better place to do that than Tommaso Ciampa. My number 4 pick, and I'm shocked Josh didn't pick this one, it's The Miz. Who fits into the A-list mentality of Monday Night Raw more than the man who has his own reality show on that exact same network? It's The Miz. And you might be wondering, he has his own reality show, he appears in movies, he might be a part-timer. Brand above all else. He doesn't need to be a full-timer. Also, when he's here, he's here. And you also might be wondering why I'm not drafting John Morrison with him. I would actually rather keep John Morrison on SmackDown as a single. Number 3, AJ Styles, because he's running scared from Paul Heyman. Number 2 is similarly, you want someone who can hold multiple segments without in-ring action. And I think of all the folks on SmackDown, The Fiend Bray Wyatt definitely fits that bill. That if you can bring him over to Monday Night Raw, and I think you're noticing a pattern, a lot of the folks I'm pointing out pretty much made themselves blockbuster superstars on SmackDown, and now here they are cashing in on Monday Night Raw. And I think historically you'll see that I'm fairly accurate. And number 1 is Braun Strowman. I think he is number 1 overall. And if you're talking about main event at WrestleMania, him and Drew McIntyre is the main event at WrestleMania. So if you're going to have your number 1 overall for Monday Night Raw, it's got to be Braun.
I mean, I'm not going to argue with the Braun because obviously he was on my list, and I understand your reasoning for number 1, like you understand my reasoning for number 5. Miz makes the perfect sense to me for, and as far as his show on USA as well to promote. The reason that I did not have him on my list is I feel that Miz and Morrison should just eventually feud. Now, this kind of prolongs that, of course, but I'm not against it. If they decide to separate and have Morrison have a singles run and Miz go back to a singles run, and I'm 100% down for that. AJ, we already talked about. Who was the other one? I'm forgetting.
Johnny Gargano.
Okay.
Bray.
Oh, Bray Wyatt. So that one, as much as I don't want him to leave SmackDown, and the reason is because once upon a time, Bray Wyatt was the champion on SmackDown, and then he got drafted to Raw, and then he started tag teaming with Matt Hardy and fell to the wayside.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I love The Fiend, and I agree because it's character-based, that is really the only character-based person on SmackDown. So it kind of belongs on Raw. I'm just worried for the sake of Bray Wyatt that history will repeat itself when he moves to Raw.
But in this hypothetical situation, I'm in charge of Raw.
So therefore, nothing can go wrong.
I'm porting... No,
because
it'll just be completely different problems.
Because you're drafting like 9 people in a 5-round draft, so nothing can possibly go wrong.
Not at all.
No.
I'm just going to... On the SmackDown side, I just ravaged the Raw locker room. I didn't care. No, but I think... Go for it. I think especially Raw being the 3-hour show, you need someone like Bray Wyatt who, in the pre-COVID era, he's like your Undertaker. You would put him on the dark match so the people who paid money for a ticket got to see him. But he otherwise does a talking segment or a backstage segment, or in Bray Wyatt's case, a cinematic segment. And the fans will be as happy as ever just to see that. I think that fits into the Raw.
Would they oversaturate him then by using him for so many segments?
No more than SmackDown does. They're not going to. I'm not saying use him to oversaturate him. I'm saying use him as much as SmackDown was using him, and that'll fill in a lot of the gaps that are otherwise spent telling me in the second hour what happened in the first hour, or telling me in the third hour what happened in the second hour. That you could fill those gaps with Bray Wyatt stuff and have a tighter 3-hour show because you have more people on it. More people on it that have stuff to do that's not just match, because that'll get useless too.
Mm-hmm.
Taking away the Johnny Gargano pick, because I think even let's say we're not booking the WWE, I think we're giving the WWE too much credit and thinking that they will do right by Johnny Gargano. I don't think they would, especially on Monday Night Raw. But even with that, I know we're not doing a point system, but I got to give that one to Steve because I'm not going to lie. No. You sold me 100% when you said The Miz, because I think both guys, but the fact that you say The Miz, not only are you kind of splitting them apart, but you have Morrison, who has been successful everywhere he's been since leaving the WWE in 2011, whether it's Lucha Underground, Impact, wherever it is, he's been just completely successful. You have The Miz, who I think is completely underrated when it comes to being a main event talent. I think I'm all in if they do end up going the separate ways and each becoming, their own respective champion, because I know we've seen both guys, the potential of what each guy can do. Again, I gave it to Josh for SmackDown. I gave it to Steve for Raw. But I want to know what you guys think. Anybody watching, let us know what you guys think. Comment down below. Tweet everybody out. But if anybody can find you on Twitter or wants to reach out to you, where can people find you guys?
So with me, you should see it right on the title there, at Josh_Tariff on Twitter and Instagram. I also am on Cameo. So you can look Josh Tariff up on Cameo. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And people have asked for shout outs. I've gotten people wanting me, since I have the hosting background, they've asked me to do introductions and announcements. And my favorite thing is you can book me on Cameo to pick a winner in your wrestling debate. You have a debate with your friend. Who do you think is the best, this guy or this guy? You let me know. I'm going to pick a winner. Have fun with it. Make whoever loses that debate, they're the one who paid the Cameo.
And I'm not on Cameo, but I am on Twitter almost exclusively. I'm at Steve Kaufmann. It's spelled how it is below me, Kaufmann. I am heavily involved in the pro wrestling YouTube space. And if I'm tweeting the link, chances are I'm involved, including this. If you've clicked all the way through to here, you already follow me, so I'm not talking to you. But circular logic.
Hey, it's Christy Olson. If you like this video as much as I did, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends so they can join in the wrestling chatter too. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and follow the show on Twitter at TW Chatter. See you next time.